Kumlana Black Gemara. This is Sunday's Gemara, Flam Gimel and Aleph, about 10 lines on the top of the page, the 2 dots. Right. And it says in the Mishnah, if they tikkun olam, Rabbi Gamliel came in, he stepped in and he said, I don't want this business anymore of husband sending out Gittin and then canceling the get, because all kinds of troubles can arise. The only way to cancel a get is if you directly go to the shliach and you tell him, give me back my get, it's over. Or you go to the wife and says, before you receive the get, I want you to know it's over. It's the only time it works. Tikkun olam, we're fixing up the word. Now, what does tikkun olam mean? Even though today we have the word tikkun olam, it has a whole new meaning, which totally, unfortunately, unrelated to Yiddishkeit. But when we say tikkun olam, sakin olam, the malchus shakai, it's all about Torah and so on. So this tikkun olam is to prevent any problems happening in halach. What are we trying to prevent? So we have an interesting argument. It says the Gemara, tikkun olam, might be tikkun olam. What do you mean? Tikkun olam, what are we trying to prevent? We're very literally, we are worried that she doesn't know that she was divorced. The shliach doesn't know either. He'll give her the divorce, and then she'll get remarried and find out later that she was never divorced and now she has children. Mamzer. That's what we're worried about. And the Shlaki says, I'm worried takanas agunas. Now, what do you mean takanas agunas? Usually the word aguna is when a woman is married and her husband disappeared, refused to give her a get, so she's called chained. But we had a few days ago the word aguna another way, and that is that aguna can also mean that the husband is there, whatever it is, and she didn't receive her divorce yet. So not that the husband disappeared or anything like that, but she's just an aguna, that she's not. We don't want that people should play around and make it easy just to keep her married when she should be divorced. So we want to help her not do mamzerim. We're not worried about mamzerim at all. Now, why aren't we worried about mamzerim? We'll see in a minute. Says the Gemara. In other words, if we're going to make it hard for the husband to cancel the get, he has to schlep all the way out to the wife's home, far away. He's not going to bother, so she'll be divorced. So we're helping her out. We don't want her to remain divorced. To remain married. So this way, they make it difficult for the husband to cancel once he already commissioned someone to bring the get. Hopefully, she'll be divorced in that particular case. Why is Abicha worried about mamzerim? Savala, he holds like the argument we just learned in the previous block. He says that all you need is 2 people to cancel the get. 2 people are not going to spread the word around. So therefore, the shliach won't find out. The woman won't find out. She thinks that she's divorced. She'll get remarried. Eventually, by the time she finds out, it's too late. She has mamzerim. Well, today, let's call it 2 people don't really spread the news around so far. But the Hilay Shama, she wouldn't have heard that that the husband actually canceled divorce. Yada, she has no idea. But Oslo, she will go. Mitzvah, she'll get remarried. You have a problem, Mamzedim. However, the Shlaki said, no, I'm not worried at all about Mamzedim. She will know. I'm not worried at all. Why will she know? The Savla, he holds like Absheshis. The Amar B'fnei Gimel, he says that if the husband wants to cancel the get in his hometown, he needs to establish a resident free. Once you establish a resident free, it becomes public knowledge. Everybody knows. She'll find out that the get has been canceled. There's no problem of agunas. But the problem, no problem of mamzer. The problem is it's so easy to cancel the get and force her to remain married that Ashlokish had Rachmanos in her. He said, no, let's make it difficult for the husband to cancel the get so that she should be divorced. Since it's not working anyway, let her to be divorced. The Beit Las East Lokala, 3 people, there's noise out there. The word will get around. The Shama, she'll hear about it. The Yada, she knows. She won't get remarried. The Takanas, Aguna, the only concern here is about an Aguna, that she will remain stuck and not divorced. Can't make it too easy for the husband to cancel the get. Says the Gemara, we have an argument between the Rebbe and Rav Shimon and Gamliel, an interesting argument. What happens, Butler? Rabbi Gamliel came along and made takana that you cannot cancel the get unless you go directly to the shliach or to the wife. What happened? You didn't listen to Gamliel and you canceled the get. You established a bezin and you canceled the get. Mevutul, Rebbe holds the fact is you canceled. Because the Torah says that you can cancel the get, and you did. So therefore, you should have done it. You did it. The get is canceled. She's a married woman. However, Rashbag says, Hashem Nul says, that's Rebbe's father, Einu Yachol, you cannot leila batloi, leila hoisev al tumai. He says, once Rabbi Gamliel put into place this takana, that you cannot cancel the get and you cannot amend the get in any way. Once you've commissioned the get, the only way to cancel it, go directly to the shliach or go to the wife. Otherwise, you establish a bezin, you cannot tamper with the get. Because otherwise, if not, this is the logic, a famous word. Ma koyach bezdin yafa. Then what is the value of a bezdin if they make laws and institutions and you can defy them and nothing doesn't in any way adversely affect what they're doing? It can't be. If bezdin made a takana that you cannot cancel a get, then you cannot cancel a get. If you did it, doesn't matter. Even though the Torah says the get is canceled, the Torah says she's a married woman. The Rabbana says we don't accept the cancellation, and now she's a free woman. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. So the Torah says that the cancellation is valid, which means she's a married woman, but because the Rabbanim don't like it, so therefore what? We're going to say the get is valid, she's a free woman, and she get married. According to the Torah, the children of Mamzedim, because the get has been canceled, so there's no get anymore. She's still a married woman, but the Rabbanim came along and said, you know what? We don't like the cancellation, let the get remain. How can it be that the Torah says she's a married woman and the Rabbanim says she's not? Is it possible the Medraisa bottle the Torah says the cancel get because of this logic? What's the power of a bezin? Sharinan Eishes Ishla Amma. We're going to allow a married woman that the Torah says her status says she's a married woman. We're going to allow her to live with anybody she wants. But in yes, we have some more ibamas. In yes, called the Mekadesh Adaita the Rabbana Mekadesh. When you stand under the chuppah and you say, Hare at Mekadesh, you are engaged to me with Tabaz Zoy. This ring, Kedas Moshe Yisrael, according to the traditions of Moshe and Yisrael, when you say Kedas Moshe Yisrael, you're giving it over to the hands of the rabbis. So therefore, they have every right to say, well, when you're not following our rules, and therefore you were never engaged in the first place. And therefore they can completely unravel the kedusha as if it never happened. So therefore, even though you think your question was that she's a married woman because the cancellation is not a good cancellation. Sorry, the cancellation is a good cancellation, so there's no get, so she's still a married woman. The Rabbana came along and said, no, you were never married in the first place. This makes sense. The Kaddish Bekaspa. If you could use money to be engaged, it makes sense. And the way Rashi learned the first shot here and in other places, the most Rishonim learn that what it makes sense. If you give Kedushin with money, the rabbis have a right to say that the money is hefker. And retrospectively, the money is hefker. And therefore, the money that you gave her to be engaged to you was never your money. So therefore, she was never engaged to you. Okay, it makes sense how the Chachamim can undo it. If the way they got engaged in the first place was through intimacy, how can the Rabbanan undo that? The fact is that they're married. How did the Rabbanan undo that? So yes, they can. The Rabbanan can say that we'll treat any intimacy they had as if it was nus, so they were never, and the Chacham have that kayach, and therefore they were never married in the first place. So what the Gemara is saying here is that the Chachamim have the right to undo the entire marriage. So once we put into place that you cannot cancel a get this way, so therefore the get is a valid get. I'm not Torah, it's not. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say our formula is that you were never married in the first place. Rashi brings a second shot, and that second shot is that getting married with money is only with the Rabbanon, so the Rabbanon can cancel the Rabbanon. Getting married or getting engaged via intimacy is Mahatera. And therefore, you cannot undo that. But the Rashi has a big problem with that because we're learning beginning Kedushin, the next Masechta. How do we know you can get engaged with money? We have two psukim, either Agzeres Shava, Kicha, or the Yatza Chinim and Kasev, and these are one of the methods to learn new halachas according to the Torah. So getting engaged with money is Mahat Torah, just like Bia. So Rashi therefore discounts that pshat at all. Taisus asked a very interesting question, a fascinating question. This is very again halacha l'maisa today. Because everybody asks, you want to help out Agunus, why don't we just say that Afki'ina Rabbanu Kedushim, why don't the rabbis just get together and say, we'll say, you know what, you guys were never married in the first place. And therefore, she's not an Agun anymore. That would be a very simple solution. And yet, over the years in history, it used to be even more difficult than today. Today, it's easy to locate the husband, and then you put pressure, and hopefully, unfortunately, many are good, or some are good, but there are opportunities. In the olden days, people disappeared; you never saw them again, and you can never find them. And if you look in the chuvas, many chuvas were dealing with difficult cases of agunas, how to set her free. It's very difficult. So why don't you employ this rule of avki'ina rabbana kedushim that we just say there's no longer kedusha, never married in the first place. So Taisa here, we'll get back in a second. Taisa here asks a fascinating question. He says that, you know something? Every time there's a case of mamzerim, And what the husband should do is, let's say his wife, whatever, committed adultery, and now there's a mamzer or something. What the husband should do is send her a get with a shliach, then cancel it in his hometown, form a bezin, cancel in his hometown. The Rabbanan are going to come in. We just learned the Gemara. In that case, they're going to say, well, we're going to treat it as if you were never married, and therefore your cancellation of the get is not a good, even though the cancellation of the get is not a good cancellation, so she's divorced, even though the Torah says that it's not, that it's a good cancellation, so we're going to remove the entire kedusha. So that is how you can save every case of mamzer. Convince the husband to give a get to his wife, and through a shliach, and then cancel it. That's the question. And basically, the includes is we don't. The answer is we don't want to undermine the very institution of marriage, because all you're doing is you're weakening the institution of marriage, because you're making it very easy for people to be philanderers and then fix it up afterwards. We'd rather. So you have to weigh up. You have to weigh up to help. Unfortunately, there are situations which are terrible rachmanis on women that husbands are recalcitrant and worse, versus undermine the entire institution of marriage and saying, well, you can go ahead and do whatever you want, and we'll just do the shliach business and or remove the kedushin like you were never married in the first place, and life goes on. And the Chachamim decided that we will lean towards saving the institution of marriage. Unfortunately, at everything comes at a cost, and the cost is that some agunas find it very, very difficult, and Rachmanis and they can't get out of the marriage. But that is the logic, and it's all based on this thesis here.
There are very few mamzeres. In reality, we have very few mamzerim.
You don't know that.
What?
The rule of mamzerim, we learn in the fourth period of Kedusha. It's a fascinating concept when it comes to mamzerim, and that is that if over time it's forgotten that they're a mamzer, they're no longer a mamzer. And that's why some of got in a situation which is unfortunate. And if a person is a mamzer, they will sometimes say, if people don't really know who you are, go to another place altogether, start life again, and don't tell anybody who you are. And over time, it'll be forgotten, and word doesn't get out, then you can start again. A fascinating concept that people are not aware. If it's forgotten, your status is different. Anyway, we'll talk about that in the fourth page of English. Okay. Studying about further, two dots. What have we learned? Omar Lasara, if he told 10 people, Kiss will get ish. He told 10 people, I want you to write a get for my wife. And he didn't say, Kulchem, I want all of you to write a get. He just said, he walks into a room of 10 people and said, I want you guys to write a get for my wife. So what happens is one person writes and two people become 8. Yochel Levat, this is argument number 2 between Rebbe and Reb Shimon Gamliel. Yochel Levat Lezeh, Shalei B'fnei Zeh. Rebbe says you can go to any two of them and say, I don't want you anymore to represent me. I don't want you to be my shliach. And this isn't a problem. We're not in any way. It's not a problem over in Gamliel, because even though these two people, let's say, were canceled, there's 8 others. Any of them can write the get and still a valid get. So you're not in any way undermining the get, and life goes on. So there's not a problem. You can reduce the number of people you want to give the potential to be involved. And Reb Shimon Gamliel says, the only way you can cancel is the 10 in the room. All 10 have to be there, so they all are aware that you want to cancel 1 or 2 people out of that group. Now, why? So the Gemara, Mike, what's going on? What's the crux of the argument? So the Gemara is arguing in an interesting machlekes which we had at the time, and that is Eidos Shebatla Miktsasa. We'll learn more about it in a minute. Eidos that was partially canceled. Let's say there were 30 Eidim. If part of the Eidim were canceled, Batla Kula. If part of the Eidim was canceled, do we say that the entire Eidos is canceled, or whoever was canceled, and those who have not been canceled, they can still move on. They can still move on ahead. So the question like this: Rebbe holds. Eidos Shebatla Miktsasa. So let's say there are 10 people in the room, and you say a few of them, I don't want you to be Eidos. Let Batla Kula. You're not about to know the rest are still qualified to go ahead. You need 3 people involved. The rest are still have 3 people involved. They're all qualified to go ahead and write the get and administer the get, and transfer the get to her. So therefore, no problem can happen, because the get will still be valid and there still will be a get forthcoming. So what's wrong with canceling a few out of the 10? And the Azli Hanach, if the others go, for example, what are you worried about? In Gamliel's case, we're worried that the others are not aware you cancel the get, and all kinds of problems will arise. Over here, the others are permitted to write the get, because just because I cancel a few of them, the rest are still all right, still kosher. So if you the halach and the rest go and kosher, they write, and give the get, let them write, let them give. No problem, they can. I never withdrew from them the agency, so I have every right to go ahead and to bring it forthcoming. We call it. And Ashira Gamliel holds no. That Eidish Butler Miktsasa Butler Kula. He holds that there's 10 in the group, and you cancel 2. Initially, you told all 10 to be involved, and you cancel 2, even though there were plenty left over, 7 or 8 still left over who can write it. The whole group is canceled. So what's going to happen? Of course, the whole group is canceled, and they're not aware because you canceled these 2 people, not in front of the whole group. So according to Gamliel, what's going to happen is, that some members of the remaining 8 will go ahead and write the get and give it to her, when technically they had no right to, because once you cancel part of the group, the entire group is puzzled, and therefore, they don't know, but also they'll go because of the right. And they'll give it to the woman. The shardu ish alma. The problem is that now you are going to. This woman thinks that she's divorced. The shluchim, when they think that they're eligible shluchim, and turn out and they're not, because once you cancel part of the group, the whole group is canceled. That's one way of understanding the argument. In other words, it fits into the takana of Gamliel that we are worried. We are worried that they're going to deliver the get when they had no right to. However, there's another way of learning. That we're not worried about anything. Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees that if you cancel 2, the other 8 are qualified to still bring the get. So what's the problem? How come Gamliel says that you're permitted to cancel 2? You know why? Because how come Gamliel says he can't? Because conservative holds. You know why you cannot cancel 2? We're not worried about anything. But he holds that the only way to cancel is the same way that you established them in the first place. When you established this group, all 10 were in the room at the same time. So if you want to cancel anybody in that group, it has to be in front of all 10, because the way you start is the way you finish. Not because we are worried that anything will go awry. Nothing to do with that, because nothing will go awry. Because technically, if you cancel 2, the remainder have every right to deliver the get. What we are worried about is not worried about anything. What we're saying is that the law is the way you establish them is the only way you can cancel them. Because somebody holds milsa de misabda ba'ape asada, anything that happens from 10 people, tzricha be asada l'mishla. You need all 10 to withdraw it. So there's 2 ways. Yeah. So there's 2 ways of understanding the argument of Gamliel and of Shimon Gamliel and Rebbe, whether it's to do because we're worried that this takana of Rabbi Gamliel, that maybe the others are not qualified to bring the get, and they still will because they're not aware of it. That's why you have to cancel them in front of everybody, or not do with that. It's just the law is the way you hire them is the way you fire them. Says the Gemara, okay, let me ask you a question. We'll ask you a question. What happens? You use the word kulchem. Gray had before. When you use the word kulchem, then all 10 have to be involved. Whether all 10 are Adim or whether 2 are Adim and the rest are part of the Tanai, it doesn't matter. You need all 10 to be involved. Mahu. And it's very important, because if you need all 10 to be involved, and the reason why now we're focusing on Shimon Gamliel, the reason why Shimon Gamliel says you cannot cancel 2 out of the 10, because the way you hired is the way you fired, then the same thing over here. You cannot cancel 2 out of 10, because again, where you hired, you fired, all 10 have to be in the room together. So the fact he said kulchem is totally irrelevant. But if you learn, the reason Shimon says you cannot fire 2 out of 10 is because if you didn't use the word kulchem, and you cancel 2, they're all canceled, and the other 8 are not aware that you canceled these 2 because you did it separately, and they'll go out there and they'll bring the get, all kinds of problems will happen, because technically they have no right to. But if you said the word kulchem, they all know that the only way the get to be valid is all 10 signed. So therefore, the get will never be delivered, because you don't have all 10 signatures. 2 of them were canceled. So in this case, if Shimon Gamliel will agree, nothing wrong with canceling 2 out of the 10, because nothing wrong will happen as a result, because he used the word kulchem, and all 10 have to sign, and because 2 won't sign, they've been fired, nothing will happen wrong. So which one is it? Ibailu. Kulchem Mahu. What's it in there? Do we say time? But the only logic behind Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is because if you cancel 2, the whole thing is canceled, and others are not aware of it, and they'll continue with the get, and all kinds of problems will happen. Hani and these other witnesses, in this case here, because you use the word kulchem, I want all of you to be involved. So therefore, the get is not a valid get anyway till all 10 are signed. And since 2 of them were fired, no problems will happen. They cannot write the other, give it to her. Nothing will go wrong. So therefore, in this case, if you will agree you can cancel 2 out of the 10. Or perhaps time of Rashbag has nothing to do because we are worried about something going wrong, but rather, the Kasavri holds, the way you hire them, if you did it in front of 10 people, you need all 10 to cancel it. So even though you use the word kulchem, you want to fire 2 of them, nothing can go wrong, but the firing is meaningless because you need all of them there together. So which one is this? So Toshma coming here. So we're trying to work out which one it is. What happens? You tell 2 people. You tell 2 people to get least. If you tell 2 people, give a get to my wife. So there's only 2 people there, and you told them clearly to give a get to my wife. Yochel levatul. So Rebbe says yochel levatul ze shaloi b'fnei ze. You can cancel one without the other. Again, Rebbe says that if you cancel part of it, the other part is not canceled. So one shliach cannot function, but other shliach cancel. What's wrong? He has every legal right to deliver the get because you didn't cancel the second one, and no problem will happen because it's not a valid get. However, Rashbag says, you cannot cancel ela zeh b'fnei zeh. That the only way to cancel is if they are both there together. Now, since you said 2, since you said to 2 people, I want you both to be cool, I want you both to write and sign a get, it's as if you said kulchem because both of them have to be involved. It's as if you said kulchem, and still Rav Shimon says you need to cancel both of them. Why? If I only cancel one, nothing can go wrong because the other guy cannot write and sign the get on his own. He's only a single person. He needs the other person with him. So nothing can go wrong. So how can Rav Shimon says that you cannot fire 1 out of the 2? Must be because the way you're hired is the way you're fired. And you're arguing. Omar Ravashi said, if we're talking about that he told the 2 witnesses, I want you to write the get, then you're 100% right. But over here, you know what we're talking about over here? We're talking about over here, he says, not that to give the get. And because he says tnu, so sorry, was the place? He said to them tnu, because he said tnu. They don't really need each other because you don't need 2 shluchim to bring the get. 1 shliach is enough. So he's saying, you could be a shliach. You could be a shliach. We thought we're talking about the witnesses who sign, and then you need both. So therefore, even though then when he said to them both, it's kulchem. Both have to be involved. But if he's talking about tnu, I want you to deliver, even though he said to both, you don't need both. 1 is good enough. And therefore, because we're talking about halacha, it's possible that if he cancels 1, and let's say we learn the other way, that if you cancel 1, the other one is canceled as well. But if he's not aware of it, he will bring the get to the wife, and she's really not divorced because once he cancels 1, the other one's automatically canceled. So the Gemara, in fact, that it makes more sense. The Tani says, Sefer, if you said to each one separately, when you hire them, he didn't say together, I want you both. He said each one separately. What's the difference if you put them together or not? Very simple. If you hire them both together in a room, he said, "I want you guys to be my let's say shliach. I want you to be whatever it is." Then we'll say, since you bunched them together, if one is canceled, according to Shringel Mill, the other one's also canceled. Either Shabbatla Miktsas, because I put you 2 together and now one of them are canceled. There's no group anymore. But if I went to each one individually, then you guys were never linked together. Then I can have every right to cancel one. It does not automatically cancel the other. So the only way to explain the difference if he put them together, or he said, or each separately, is if you follow the other way of understanding, and that is the concept: if you cancel one, does it automatically cancel the other ones or not? If you originally hire the 2 together, you cancel one, then the other one gets canceled as well. If you did not hire them together individually, then you cancel one, does not cancel the other. And that's why if you went to each one separately, you hired them, and afterwards you want to fire one of them, no problem, because the other one is still a valid shliach, and he can bring the get, and nothing will go wrong. We're talking about that you're talking about Adim to transfer, it makes sense. If you're talking about Adim, it can't be talking about Adim. Why not? Maybe it's talking about Adim, the same logic. You say it can't be talking about Adim that he said, I want you to write and sign the get. You know why it can't be? Because if he went to them individually, they wouldn't be valid Adis. We know when it comes to Adis that in order, let's say for a loan, on Monday a guy borrowed $100, on Tuesday if you want to have two witnesses on the document that he borrowed $100, both witnesses have to witness it on Monday. If one witness $100 on Monday and the other one on Tuesday, they cannot sign the same document, even though it's $100. The same $100, it's $100. You can't because they have to see the same event together. So the same thing here. If it was Eidei Chasima, then you cannot go to one on his own and another one. He said, "Okay, I want you to be witness and today," and then another one he said, "I want you to witness. I'm going to do it again tomorrow." They have to be there together to see to see the event, and therefore it cannot be talking about Eidei Chasima. Is talking about Eidei Halacha. Just a ferry. He's saying you could be mashliach to bring the get. Says the Gemara. If you say the shop, it's good. How in the world can you combine the two together? That's we learned. You cannot combine testimony of witnesses until they both see exactly the same event, and therefore, because it must be talking about that, I asked them to be not aiding, but just to be my shliach, and therefore I can go to each one separately. So that's not really a compelling proof, because there is an opinion that says Dilma could be sure relay. Maybe Holy Shimon Karchu says that in fact, if the two witnesses don't have to see the same event, as long as they're saying the same thing, it is good enough. Says Gemara further, so we have two arguments in the Gemara between Rebbe and Shimon Gamliel. One is according to Rebbe, if he defied Rabbi Gamliel's takana, the cancellation of the get is a valid cancellation, and you didn't bother going to the shlich, you did it at home. According to Shimon Gamliel, even with the Yevit, it's not a valid cancellation. That's one argument. And the other argument is if you appointed a whole room of went to a whole group of people and you said, "I want you guys to write," and according to the Rebbe, what do you call it? You can cancel. You could cancel a couple of them separately. It doesn't matter because the rest are still qualified to deliver the get. So what can be wrong? They'll deliver the get. Because you cancel two guys, other eight are still valid. And according to Shimon Gamliel, you cannot cancel two out of the lot because he holds that once you cancel part of the eight, the entire eight is canceled, but they're not aware of it and they'll deliver the get to him. Or because the way you establish something is the way you think, is the way you something like this. Is the way you fire. Amr Shul Bar Yehuda. Shamit Menei Rab Abba. I once heard from Rab Abba Tarti. Two things he said. Chada Kerebi, the Chada Kerab Shmuel. He said the two arguments of Rebbe Shmuel. One of them the halach is like Rebbe, and one of them the halach is like a Shimon ben Gamliel. I don't know which one. Which one is which? Amr Rabbi Yisrael said Nechzin. Let's see. Chiyas Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came forward, Amar he said, there was a story, but also Rebbe Kedivrei Chachamim. The Rebbe that came and ruled. Now, what is the whole logic of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel? The logic of Shimon ben Gamliel is in the case of B'diyevit. If you defied Rabbi Gamliel and you just canceled the get when you shouldn't have. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Im came Makoyer Bezin Yafet." Bezin makes a takana, then you have to give them you have to invest in them these powers that. That's how it is. You can be resolute, and therefore even the evidence is not good if you don't allow. So there's another case where we know we have a law of Aino. Aino is if you overcharge or undercharge, like more than a sixth, then the whole thing gets canceled. So what happens if the Bezdin, let's say, valued a property and they've overestimated or underestimated by more than a sixth, right? A shtus. So we say that, and so the Chachamim said that if the Bezdin made a ruling, the whole deal is canceled because no different than anybody else. If you've completely erred and by a certain amount, the whole thing falls off. So what happened was, comes along Rav Dimi, he said that Rebbe ruled like the Chachamim, that no, the Bezdin makes a mistake, they're fallible, and will unravel whatever they did. Amalafan of Rebbe Parta Benoish Rav Elazar and Parta Ben Benoish Rav Parta Gadol. Rav Parta, the grandson of Rav Parta Gadol, said no. He said to Rebbe, "In Cain, if so, Makoyer Bezin Yafa. If you're going to tell me that a Bezin is no different than a layman, if they make a mistake, then you have to redo the whole thing. Then what's so special about a Bezin?" In Cain, Makoyer Bezin Yafa. And what happened was the Chazar Rebbe Ba'osek Rav Shingamil. Rebbe changed his mind. He said, "You're right." He relented. He said, "You're right." So Rebbe agreed with this principle. It became Makoyer Bezin Yafa. So therefore, the halach must be like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel when it comes to B'diyevit. If you cancel the get, the cancellation is worthless because im kain makoyer bezin yafa. Even Rebbe agrees to the principle of his father, the Im Kemak Lebeziyafa. Once Bezin put a takana place Gamliel, that's how it is. You cannot cancel the get unless you go directly to the shluchim or to the wife. Is in the Hakashim will Hakirebi. So since in that argument we'll follow Shingamliel about Im Kemak Lebeziyafa, in the next argument, which is if you cancel 2 out of the 10, we'll follow Rebbe and we'll say, oh, that's a cancellation, a valid cancellation. It doesn't matter. And the other 8 can bring the get. It doesn't matter. Then the Gemara continues. Af Rabbi Yeshua, so to Rabbi Yeshua, Minusha Sava Chaduk Rebbe also follows the one thing like Rebbe, one of Shingamlil. Chamisha Savi, there were 5 elders. Havina Kamed Rabbi Yeshua Minusha. We were sitting in front of Yeshua, in front of Usha. Also, Gavra, a person came in, Kame before us. The Ashkla Gita Al Korche. We forced him to divorce his wife. This is a case of a bezin forcing to divorce his wife, and we learned that peches, what rights does a bezin have? Because a forced get is known as a get mu'usa, a coerced get. So how can this get be a valid get? We're going to learn there in the Gemara. So what happened was they coerced this person to give a get, but they were worried. Okay, now he's a bezin. He wrote a get, got witness to sign, and we gave it to an agent to deliver it to the wife. She was in another town. It takes a week or 2 weeks to travel. What's going to prevent the husband from the following day to cancel the get? And they achieved nothing. So if Rabbi Gamliel came along and said, you can no longer cancel, right? Unless he goes directly to the wife of the shliach. He'll never make it in time. Because they had a day head start, whatever it is. So, but they were worried. Why would they be worried? The only possible reason why they were worried is because they felt that b'di'evid it's a good cancellation. Says the Gemara, Amallah, he told the witnesses, Zilugo at tomorrow. He told the shliach when the witness there, he says, after we force this person to organize his get, I don't want him to cancel you at all. So therefore, Zilu Atmaira, because actually what happened here was it didn't even write the get yet. We were organizing to write the get, and we got these 2 witnesses. And the husband commissioned the witnesses, I want you to sign. So it'll take a day to get the sefer to organize and write the get. I don't want the husband to find you and he'll cancel it. So hide, which means that the husband can't cancel. I want you to hide. The if you're like Rebbe, if you hold like that, what? That the cancellation is a good cancellation. What's he saying? I want you witnesses to hide, because the halacha is if you go directly to the shluchim or to the wife, according to everybody, it's a good cancellation. So if he goes to the witnesses who are meant to sign the get and he tells them, I don't want you to sign, then that's it. It's a good cancellation. So I don't want him to see you. Now the question is, what's the point? Who cares? If the halacha is like according to Rebbe, the b'di'evid, if he cancels, he calls in 3 strangers in the street, or 2 strangers. He says to them, I want you to know I'm writing a get and I want to cancel it. It's a valid cancellation. B'di'evid, what did Rebbe achieve? So if he hid them, what helps? There's only one possible conclusion. You know why it helps? Because Rav Shimon ben Gamliel because we rule like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that b'di'evid, if you cancel the get and not in front of the witnesses and not in front of the shliach, somewhere else, it's not a valid cancellation. So that's another proof that the halacha is Gamliel, but b'di'evid doesn't help. Says the Gemara, the isal kedatach. And if you're going to say that idach nam Gamliel, if you're going to say that maybe both arguments are halacha Gamliel, maybe the other argument as well. If he cancels 2 people, it's not considered a cancellation, and it's not considered a cancellation because you need to have all of them there to fire them, or the other reason we gave was because if you cancel 2, the others don't know that you're disqualified, and problems are going to arise. So he said this: if you hold like Rav Shimon Gamliel, why did he have 2 witnesses? If that you cannot cancel one without the other, livadre abduri. You know what you should do? Better yet, tell each witness, one witness stay here, one witness go to another city. If they're separate, if you hold that the only way you can cancel the witnesses is like a Shimon Gamliel, they have to be together and not separate, just separate the witnesses. You don't have to hide. Hide is a very drastic measure. Just tell them not to be together, never to be together until it's all done. However, Rava says, halacha is like Rebbe b'shtei. The Rabbi said halacha is like Rebbe in both instances. I what? But the evidence, it's a good cancellation. Number 1, and number 2 is you could cancel one witness without the other witnesses around. Says the Gemara. So you're telling me that Allah like Rebbe, that what? That the cancellation with cancellation. In other words, he doesn't believe in the logic that a Bezdin has given these powers that beyond the normal halachas. So that's the question. The Lester and Nachman Makoyer Bezdin Yofi, he doesn't believe in this principle. But Nachman Shmuel. And Nachman Shmuel. You say me, we have orphans, young kids. Now they're coming to distribute the inheritance of their parents, of their father. And what do? They're too young to inquire of themselves. Bezin signs to them an executor of the state who takes care of all their needs. And this particular apotropha should try to choose for each of their Yarshim the best possible allotment of land. And Higdili, but the kids, once they grow up, once the kids grow up, they can always say, I'm not happy, I was too young then, I want to redivide the land. But Rab Nachman, Rab Nachman himself says, once the Apotrophus divided the land, even when they grow up, they can no longer redivide. Too late. This is what you have to accept. Why? And the logic he used is, because otherwise, what's the power of a Bezdin if whatever they did, tomorrow you can unravel? Which means he believes in that logic that the Bezdin is all powerful. If he believes in the logic that Bezdin is all powerful, then Nachman should rule that if you didn't follow Rabbi Gamliel's logic, if you went ahead and you canceled the get in front of your own local Bezdin and not directly to Shliach, your cancellation is meaningless because in Cain, Ma'koy Bezdin Yofer. So how can Nachman say the rules like Rebbe, but the evidence good cancellation when the same Nachman says that we do vest powers into a Bezdin beyond the normal? Says Gemara, big difference. Hasa memoina, hacha isura. Over there, we're talking about money matters, and here we're talking about isur. Over there, in the case of the children, it's money. Money is a case of hefker, bezin, hefker. So the bezin has a right to say this particular allotment by this executive will go to this child, and too bad, because bezin has the right to take money away from one person and give it to another person. Here we're talking about a get. We're talking about about a Isser of a married woman. And the logic, because Bezdin has to be all powerful, therefore, but the evidence, if the Torah says you cancel the get, it's not a cancellation, we cannot go that far. And to say, Bezdin will remove the entire Kedushin, we don't like using Bezdin unless